Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to bring airfoil coordinates into Gmsh so that you can create a mesh for a CFD program. First thing to do is to see how the files are laid out when we first load it into Gmsh. So if I'm in Gmsh right now and I go down to, in the geometry module, go down to edit file, you can see that this file is blank, there are no points, nothing is defined in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into elementary entities, add, and I want to add a few points so that we can see how they are defined. And so I'm going to move this around. You can see over here it says E to add points, so I'm going to press E here, and E here. And then we can press Q to abort, so I'm going to press Q, and now we have these three data points that are laid out in our XY plane. And so if I want to see what the file looks like, I'm going to go down to here to edit file. And you can see that it defines the points here. We specify 3 points, point 1, 2, and 3, given by the x coordinate, y coordinate, z coordinate, and something that has to do with the mesh later on that we could ignore for now. And so that's how you define points. And so that's how we can define the airfoil points when we load them in. The next thing to do is to define lines, because we want lines in between our data points. So if we go back out to here, we can go to add, and here I'll do straight line. So I'm going to start here, click this point, click this point. That creates a line. Now I'm going to go click this point, create another line, and then lastly here to here creates our last line. I'll press Q to abort, and now we can go in and edit the file again. You can see that we've created a few lines. There's 3 lines between the 3 points, and they just specify where the lines are between which points. So this is between point 1 and 2, 2, 3, and 3, 1. So this is how the data file needs to be laid out when we bring our or save our airfoil data. We need points defined and then the lines defined. I've made a couple edits to my GUI NACA 4-digit airfoil code. I'll make this available, or I'll update it on my GitHub account, and I'll post the link in the description. And so if I go into my the fig file, if I open this in guide, I can open this up, and down here under the save type I want to add a new output type because all the math is the same to get the airfoil data points. Now if I go in here and I go down to string and I open this up, you see that I have my leading edge to trailing edge to leading edge, the inventor that I use for my 3D printing, and now I added this gmsh.geo file output. So that's the 4th option in this drop down list. And so if I go into here, you can see in this is in my save data push button, that when it saves the data and if it ends up being the Gmsh type, it'll output the points here. So the upper, x upper, y upper, and then it'll go on the lower and do x lower, y lower. The z is always going to be 0 because I want this in the xy plane, and I'm just setting this element to 1 for that point. And then I'm going to output that to the file, and then I output the line connectivity as well in the file after I output all the points. And so if we save a file out like this, so if I run the code here, and we'll just do a NACA 0012, I'll plot the airfoil, come down here, change it to the .geo, changes the extension in here. And so if I save this data, you can see it output the file NACA.geo here, and if I open this outside of MATLAB here, you can see that it prints out the correct format for Gmsh, where you have all the points, and then you have all the lines connecting all the points together, and the ending one connects the last point to the first point so that we have a closed loop. So what we can do then is open this in Gmsh. I'm going to go to the file menu, I'm going to go to open, and here we have the NACA.geo file. I'll double click, and here you can see all the data points defining the airfoil, and they're all connected by lines, and this last one's connected by a line as well. And you can rotate it. If I press Alt Z, it brings us back to the Alt Z again, it brings us back to this normal view of the XY plane. And so this is how you can import the geometry. You're going to have to create your actual mesh after this, and I'll do some videos later about that. But this is just how you get the airfoil into Gmsh. In this particular airfoil, you can see that it's very sparse up front. It's because I didn't do the clustered leading and trailing edges. So if I go back into my MATLAB and I run the code again, I can plot the airfoil, and now I can make my grid type non-uniform, plot it again, and it cleans up the front. So if I plot this as dots, it cleans up the front. And then I can save this again out to the GEO file, save it, and then if I go back into Gmsh, I can open up the new one, and you can see now it has a better defined leading edge and trailing edge. So thanks for watching this video.